Okay, good evening and welcome back once again to the We Are Marshall podcast. My name is Stephen Marshall and this is my co-host Bill McIntyre. We're just two guys discussing the issues of the day, laying out the facts of those issues, and giving you our opinion and view on those issues. We would also love it here at the We Are Marshall podcast if you'd like and share all of our episodes around your social media. We can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, and of course Rumble. Rumble is where we populate our full channel with season 1 and 2 of all of our episodes. Download the free app Rumble and search the We Are Marshall podcast. Then subscribe and follow to get notification of new episodes and other endeavors by Bill and I. Check out our episodes on all of these social media sites and share them to help us grow. We would also love it if you would check out our website at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com. You can see a number of things Bill and I are working on the website. If you go to Bill's bio, you can click on a link to all his blog posts and check out Vella on Amazon, where Bill also writes episodic short stories for your viewing. Check out my 2 new books currently for sale on Amazon, The Unforeseen Enemy and The Perception Therapist. I'm soon to publish Skies Over Terrorism within the next 30 days, but the previous 2 both are available now. Also, check out our sponsors, Local Prints New Hampshire. You can go to our website again at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com and click on the link to the Local Prints New Hampshire on the top left. They're a full-scale screen printing company in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and they are available for domestic and international printing. Go support them as they do support us. Also, check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com, a large dating website just like all the other big dating websites out there with all the features that the big players have in the dating sphere. But Mate Connector is much more inexpensive than any of the other players in the dating market. We would also like if you would support our newest sponsor, Army Ranger Painting and Contracting. You can contact and look into them at www.armyrangerpainting.com. They're a full-service contracting company supporting Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Check them out and schedule a free estimate of any project you have. If you have any questions in regards to this podcast or anything related to it or issues, you can reach us both at the following emails. Bill can be reached at bill@wearemarshallpodcast.com, and I can be reached at steve@wearemarshallpodcast.com. So we've been away for a little bit. We want to try to get back in the swing of things. So we have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right into the issues of the day. The first issue that I have here is a new poll reveals what voters think will happen in New York versus Trump. Nearly 2/3 of voters say former President Trump will be found guilty on some charges in his unprecedented criminal trial. 65% of registered voters questioned in a Suffolk University USA Today national poll of registered voters predict the former president will be convicted on some of the nearly 36 state felony charges he faces in his trial in New York City, which is the first in the nation's history for a former or current president. Trump is charged with falsifying business records in relation to payments during the 2016 election that he made to Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about his alleged affair with the adult film actress. Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, paid Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, a $130,000 payment in return for her silence about allegations of an affair with Trump in 2006. Now, let me lay this out before I continue. The point that he paid Miss Daniels or Stephanie Clifford, whatever you want, the $130,000, is not a crime. I know the public thinks that's what the crime is, but it's not the crime. The crime is actually that he used his personal money on it. They're trying to say that this was a campaign-related issue and he should have used campaign funds. But let's be real, people. If he used campaign funds, then they'd get him on a campaign finance violation. This was inevitable. But the former president has repeatedly denied falsifying business records as well as the alleged sexual encounter with Daniels. The poll released on Tuesday, as Daniels took the witness stand for the first time in the blockbuster trial, indicates that half of those questions believe Trump will be found guilty on some, but not all, counts. 15% predict the former president will be convicted on all counts, with 23% saying he'll be found not guilty on all charges. The poll sets expectations going into the remainder of the trial and the verdict in terms of what voters see. This could be vastly different than what the jury sees, David Pelagos, director of the Suffolk University Political Research Center, told Fox News. 44% of those surveyed say they don't believe the trial has been fair to date. 44%, with 39% saying Trump is getting a fair trial. 16% were undecided. Fairness cut along party lines, with 76% of Democrats saying Trump is receiving a fair trial, while 80% of Republicans claim that the trial has not been fair. Pelagos said independents were split evenly on the question of fairness at 37% each, with 24% undecided. Trump has continuously said in speaking to reporters, in interviews, and in social media postings that the trial is not fair, and he's also repeatedly criticized prosecutors, the judge and witnesses in the case. New York Supreme Court Judge Juan Merchan recently found Trump in contempt 9 times for violating a gag order in the case that prevents the former president from speaking out and taking aim at jurors and witnesses. And on Monday, Merchan ruled that Trump again violated his gag order and warned he would consider jailing the former president if the violations continued. Trump and his defense attorneys have argued that the former president and presumptive Republican presidential nominee should not be bound by the gag order, saying it violates his First Amendment rights as well as the First Amendment rights of his supporters. The trial has partially sidetracked Trump from the campaign trail as he faces off with President Biden in a 2024 election rematch. The Suffolk University poll for USA Today was conducted April 30th through May 3rd, with 1,000 registered voters nationwide questioned. The survey's overall sampling error is plus or minus 3.1 percentage points. Now let's wrap all this up just so you get our opinions on the facts that we just laid out for you. Now, in relation to this, they keep saying it's a fair trial. I mean, they had to bootstrap a federal crime to a misdemeanor that had already run out the statute of limitations just to be able to bring this forward. Then on top of it, the person, Alvin Bragg, that brought it forward is a district attorney, a state employee, not a federal employee, yet he brought a federal charge. So if anybody looks at that and says it's fair, I don't know what you're talking about. That's completely insane. And this is something that's never been tried before. And then, like I laid out earlier, the payment to Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford, is not the crime that they're saying he committed. It's taking his own personal funds to pay Miss Clifford. That's what he's getting in trouble for, because they feel that this is a campaign issue because he wanted it to keep it quiet for the campaign. Therefore, he should have utilized campaign funds. I mean, that's really a semantic type issue to me, and it's ridiculous. What do you think about all this, Bill?
Well, this is a complex case. I have thoughts on the polling regarding what people's general consensus of it is. I have a question about how Bragg was able to levy a federal charge. That was mentioned when this thing first happened. I don't think people realize what the issue at hand with this trial. I think most people think it's just about hush money and because he had an affair with a porn star. And I guess, I hate to say that, I might be showing ignorance here, but I don't know what the difference is, what funds he paid her with. The fact is that if it was by campaign funds, then yes, why aren't they going after him for campaign finance violation unless they can't prove it and they know it?
Well, no, it was not campaign funds. It was definitively personal money.
Right. So either way, though, if it was different with campaign funds and it was deemed to be hush money, is that a campaign violation? I mean, I think it would be. But
you think because he used the money to pay her to keep quiet, you think that's a crime?
No. I asked you. I'm asking you, not opining. If the money was paid from a different account, how would it have changed the optics of this case? But I don't know if that's a question you can answer. But this is it's a complicated story. But the one thing that gets me is the people that weigh in and feel that this is a fair trial, and it's split right down lines. Democrats say, "Oh yeah, it's perfectly fair." we think it's great, and the conservatives who see what, and I guess independents clearly see it as well, given their strong showing in this poll, that conservatives see it as just any last-ditch effort, one after another, to derail this guy from getting the nomination for president and winning the election. So it's kind of shocking to me, because people should be able to look at this story on the merits of the actual case, and you should be able to look at it objectively enough to say, there's nothing there. I don't even care about this because it's Donald Trump and it's New York. It's funny because he's been a fixture in New York forever, but all of a sudden they hate him after he donated everybody in the entire city, millions of dollars. But it's very, this whole trial is so representative of the political culture in this country right now. I think it almost is the example of the political culture. People just want him gone. They don't even care if he's guilty. They just want the jury to say he is, I don't know if that's a fair assessment or not, but you covered a lot of information there, and it's good stuff. But those are my takeaways.
Well, the scary thing is, you're right in your last assessment. This is really how the country goes, because you look, Republicans are at 80% that he's not getting a fair trial. Democrats are at 76% that he is. But independents are at 37% that he is and 37% that he's not. So let's go with the independents are really how this country is right now. And those are the ones that are going to elect the next president.
Right. I was going to say that. That number, even evenly tied, shows you just how slightly the breezes are going to blow in this election. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm backing up and validating the point that you made at the end, of course. No.
So that's a big point, actually. I'm glad you
I think it's a very big point. But the whole thing that I really want to get across to our audience, and this is going to be my third time saying it, and there's a reason for that. The crime is not how that he paid the money to her. They're trying to utilize semantics and say, you used your personal money to do this. That's a campaign thing. You should have used campaign funds. But I'm in the belief, and I think you'd be on the same side as me, if he had utilized campaign funds, they'd be coming after him for some kind of campaign.
That's what I tried to address, and I didn't. But
I can't say that definitively. But I think you and I would believe the same thing on that issue.
That makes a lot of sense, Steve. Let's remove, what someone might think, or let's remove, the quotation fingers facts for a moment. I think looking at this as a reasonable person, I think that's exactly what you'd come up with.
Yeah,
I think if they wouldn't let their politics influence their rationality and their opinion, and just look at it for what it is. I mean, what do we talk about? $130,000 here?
Yeah, to him,
they're going to spend what, $20 million in New York money to go after a $130,000 offense. It's like
exactly, and then put him in jail and have to pay that money too. I mean, It costs exorbitant amount of money just to go after someone over $130,000. And I do want to stress that point. You did have a question, and I can't answer that one. I'm baffled by that.
That was unfair to ask that last
that's
question.
The Alvin Bragg thing.
Yeah.
How can he charge a federal crime? He's not a federal employee. He bootstraps a federal crime to a statute of limitations run out misdemeanor. It's amazing to me. And if that can be done, okay, not to go off on a tangent, but just entertain me here on this one subject. If that can be done, okay, the feds went after Hunter Biden, not the state, the feds. Right. Why didn't the feds bootstrap something to his IRS tax violation that ran out the statute of limitations to then be able to do that? Why?
That's a great question. I
don't know. But we're going to move on.
I didn't know that Bragg was even legally allowed to do what he did. When this whole thing first started, that was brought up, and it went away. That whole question just went away.
So I'm going to make a note to look into the particulars of that, because I think it would be nice for the audience to know that.
I'm making a big asterisk next to that one.
All right. So that was topic number one here at the We Are Marshall podcast. We're going to move on. Bill's going to take over and do his segment. And he's got a segment that's going to correlate to the voting and election. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff like this. And it may be Trump, it may be Biden, but there's going to be a lot of stuff, and we will be as fair as we can. But go ahead, Bill.
All right. Well, the interesting story is, and the headline kind of says it all, is that the Chicago voters sent a message to Biden ahead of his visit to the city. We are completely fed up with Democrats, which is an amazingly powerful statement that you kind of have to linger on for a second and say, holy crap, you know? So when you read this headline, you're going to dig down and say, who said it? And of course, how many people feel that way? And I was pretty satisfied, if you will, to the number of people who feel this way when I read this article. Betty Guider, who is a Chicago resident, she basically told the media on Fox and Friends that black residents ready to support Trump as migrants trigger outrage. So this is the issue, okay? And I take no satisfaction in this, but the migrant crisis is really blowing back on Biden hard. And here's an example because it's causing him a lack of support based upon the premise that a lot of people believe that open border policies are to encourage minority votes, not to discourage them. Because the Democrats have always assumed that the blacks are always going to vote for them, Latinos are always going to vote for them, that the Jewish base is always going to vote for them. And we're seeing a very sharp contrast to that. Chicago residents expressed frustration and anger with President Biden ahead of his visit to the city, upcoming visit, warning that black voters are turning on the Democratic Party in huge numbers. Quote, P. Ray Easley, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, and Betty Guider, just citizens of Chicago, joined Fox and Friends and to explain why they think the city is no longer the Democratic stronghold that they anticipated. And I think the word assumed is better. I think that they probably think that the Democrats assume that their city is locked and loaded for them. The city is completely fed up with the Democratic Party. We are stepping over illegals every day. They're now trying to break into people's homes. Gas is through the roof. Groceries are through the roof. Violence is up. Nothing is comfortable here on the Democratic leadership. We're all moving on. And she explained that the Democratic Party has always counted on support from the black community, but now Democrats see it they have stopped trying to appeal to black voters. So many of our black members have decided to change over, to switch from blue to red, and I think it's kind of too late to come to Chicago now, Joe, to appeal to us. It's nothing here for you. We are fed up. Now, Easley says that more voters are going to vote for Trump despite Biden winning the city in 2020 by a landslide. So the situation is changing quickly because of Democrats' policies on migrants. So in this case, I guess that would suggest that the migrants are just the final straw. Okay. I think that they're definitely going to vote for Donald Trump because we can't afford to keep subsidizing the illegals who are coming here. People are proudly stating that they're going to vote for the first time in their lives. That's interesting. And they're going to run to the polls to vote for Donald John Trump, she added. She further explained that Chicago residents are tired of the same issues facing the city, but meanwhile, support is always available for illegal immigrants. Our school system, particularly in the black community, has suffered tremendously. Our students are leaving our communities to go to other schools. The crime rate is still very high. She also said that there are many unsolved murders, and voters are infuriated to see resources that could help to solve those murders and other law enforcement issues being allocated to illegal immigrants. So many things that money could have been used for. And as a people here, we've been told that we have no money. There is no money for Chicago that has citizens here. But now all of a sudden, monies are coming in to support illegal aliens, not migrants, to support illegals. We are the citizens here, aren't we? We paid into the system. We're suffering. Okay. So I'm not going to lie to you, Steve, okay? This article sums up everything that you and I have been saying all along, okay? We have been consistent about this. We have said that not only that the Democrats are going to get fed up with this stuff, but listen to the issues that she laid out there, okay? Now, she said, we're stepping over illegals. Gas is through the roof. Okay, so now they're also talking about the administration's handling of the economy, which is something they're trying to run on. Groceries also are through the roof. Once again, they keep downplaying the cost of feeding your family, which is up like 40%. But now they say violence is up. But then they say, and what is with the allocation of resources for people who do not belong here? And I know that's probably the wrong way to put it, but I'll dial that down to what she has said.
No, you own that because you're right. They don't belong here. They're illegal. Can they come here legally? Yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
You're fine.
I don't want to come across as hateful, but you know what I'm saying. I just don't know if anybody would.
And I'll make sure to help you there. No worries.
Thank you. Yeah. But what it means, though, is that people are saying, like I just quote this woman from the last paragraph of the article. we're the ones who put into the system. And we speak up and say we need resources. We have a deaf ear, but when something mentions that is needed for illegals, then it's there. Well, this is happening everywhere. We talked about a story last week in Massachusetts where they voted to take an available housing facility, and instead of possibly housing, Americans, if you will, first, second, third generation homeless people, they just designated for migrants, which is just a slap in the face to anybody who was put into the system. And sadly, veterans who put everything into the system, including a good part of their mental health and physical health as well, are being passed over. So this is a what's the word I'm looking for? This is not an indictment. It's a mandate. It's an indication of a large issue that's consistent across the entire country. Other states are feeling this pinch. Other cities are feeling this. Other people are speaking up. And I don't wish anything bad on anybody, but I wish that people would listen, okay? Because it's very arrogant for the Democratic Party to assume that the blacks are always going to vote for them. And by the way, this is not only the blacks. She's speaking for the black community, but Chicago in general is bursting at the seams. And there's some pretty, it's like Ghostbusters when they had that goo under the city that was brewing and causing all the bad energy. There's an upswing, an upsurge, if you will, of hostility towards the complacent attitudes that the administration has towards pushing people, thinking that they're never going to snap. And they are going to snap, and it's going to be bad for them. And as much as it would give me great political satisfaction, these are still people that I don't want to be affected by this. I want these people to get the relief they need, the safety they need. I don't want their kids being in danger because resources are being used for other things in law enforcement. So I guess the real questions here, my talking points, is this for real? Is a significant number to actually look at this as a real indication of what's going on in this coming election? And like you said, we are going to be talking about the election, stuff like this all the time. So coming up, are the reasons given and accurate? Are they really the likely reasons across the board, or is there more to it? Will it be enough to swing the election in DJT's direction? And I think it's just a very bad sign for the president. Trump's dominance in the Republican primaries, might be a result of this. So, and one quick thing, his Biden support, there's a poll that says his numbers have collapsed with black voters nationwide. It looks like they said that between September 15th and 19th of last year, the presidential approval has slipped from 80% in 21 to 63% among black voters. Well, if that difference goes to Donald Trump, that could be a massive difference in how many votes he gets.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. All good stuff. And I do want to point out today, a Democrat mayor in one of the largest Democrat states in our country, New York, Eric Adams, who was a police officer in New York before he became mayor, said this. You ready for this quote?
I'm listening.
Mayor Adams says, I have a solution for the migrants. We are short on lifeguards, and the migrants can be lifeguards for the city. They already know how to swim.
Oh, he did not say that.
He literally said it, and he got berated by Democrat left media saying it's racist. And I'm going to go out and say that was a racist statement. I mean, period. I mean, these people are completely clueless. You pointed it out, Bill. They don't know what they're doing on one end or the other. It's all about the money. Let's be real. Mm-hmm. The phrase "follow the money" holds true with everything. I think you agree with me on that. And if we followed the money here, who's getting enriched by these migrants coming over the border? That's what I'd like to know, because that's what this is really all about. This isn't about anything else.
The theory, it starts with this anyways, is something we've often said, is that that I've always said that if migrants voted for Republican, the border would have been closed 3 years ago. Okay, I've always said that.
Oh yeah,
I think yeah. So the theories about migration are that all migrants will vote Democrat and will somehow find a way to legally vote. And then we talked about the population thing, in which, the representation system in which we decide how many representatives per state. are allocated is depending upon population. Well, as these cities experience massive, just people just evacuating the city due to high taxes and all the issues this poor woman mentioned. You got to restock those states to keep their representation so they continue to win elections. So those are the dominating theories about why they're allowing this migration, unfettered from the border. And then you add on what you just talked about, and it seems pretty obvious, but it's so disorganized and it's so unfair. People are calling the police and they can't get police to respond because they're either not funded, they're not being given the overtime because the city's broke, because they allocate all these funds to people who are just draining the entire city of its efforts, resources, and unfortunately life. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the bottom line is as we lead up to this, I think a task you and I should do is to look up where some of this money is going that's helping the migrants. What about who's getting paid that's supplying them the food, the toiletries, the tents, a number of things, because I think we're going to find out something very nefarious if we do that. And the public needs to know. And you're right. They should take care of us and our veterans first and foremost, period. That's the whole thing about the Make America Great and Focus on America. They don't want to do that, and we do need to.
I had a conversation with Pam the other day about Make America Great, and she says, America is great. I'm like, hold on. I love this country. But you know what? Right now, it's really not. It's just not.
I mean, we're behind in a number of things, and we've got to focus on that. You don't sit here and just say we're great and stuff it under the rug. You got to find a way to make it better. That's all. But
that's right.
Yeah. I'm with you. Okay, here at the We Are Marshall podcast, we'd love it if you'd like, share, and subscribe on our Rumble channel, all of our episodes, and share them. We're on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, Twitter, which is X, and Truth Social. If you have any questions or issues, you can reach Bill at bill@wearemarshallpodcast.com, and of course myself, Steve at wearemarshallpodcast.com. So at the third segment, we're going to jump into that, and mine's a little bit more. It's still going to focus on Trump stuff related to him in a tangential way. So let's break this down right now, and this next topic is the U.S. economy is at risk of becoming a banana republic if Trump goes to jail. Now, many of you may not know what the phrase banana republic means, okay? It's a third world country. It's a country that can't take care of itself, and it's a mess. You got dictators, and you may sit there and say we don't have dictators. Well, if you go look at many of the actions of Joe Biden, you may disagree with the statement you made that we don't have dictators, but we'll get that another day. But as America's macroeconomic story has slowed quite considerably over the past year, one former White House advisor warned about the big risk to financial stability. I really think if you look at the case in New York, that the judge is being so undemocratic, unconstitutional in his rulings against President Trump. It really looks like there's a conspiracy to put him in jail, to put him behind bars, former White House Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Kevin Hassett said Tuesday on Mornings with Maria. If President Trump is in chains going to Rikers Island, then would you want to buy a U.S. Treasury the next day? He posted.
Great point.
U.S. gross domestic product, GDP, the broadest measure of goods and services produced across the economy, grew by a mere 1.6% on an annualized basis in the 3-month period from January through March. The Commerce Department reported in its first reading of the data this year. It marked the slowest pace of growth in 2 years and significantly missed the 2.4% increase forecast by LSEG economists and signaled a sharp slowdown from the 3.4% pace seen during the fourth quarter.
More than 50%.
After posting the subpar growth momentum, stock investors went into selling mode as markets reacted with the Dow Jones Industrial Average falling over 375 points and the S&P 500 and tech-heavy NASDAQ composite closing lower by 0.5%, a half a percentage point, and 0.6% over a half percentage point, respectively. The thing that I'm really worried about short-term risk for the economy is that the Democrats are serious in this lawfare, Hassett said. And if they actually succeed, then imagine it's like we become a banana republic the moment they take him to Rikers. And I just can't imagine what happens to treasury markets that day. As stocks tumbled 2 weeks ago, bonds rose with the yield on the 10-year treasury touching 4.76%, the highest since November. Markets will take note, Hassett argued, of potential jail time for Trump, and it'll be one of the bigger market effects that we've ever seen. Yields go way, way up, and equities go way, way down, he added. If you're a Swiss investor and you're thinking, should I buy a U.S. bond? And you see Trump going to Rikers on ridiculous charges, right? Then you are not going to want to buy the bonds. Former President Donald Trump is back in a New York City courtroom this week to defend against charges related to alleged hush money payments. And after attempting to move for a mistrial after adult actress Stormy Daniels' testimony on Tuesday, the judge denied the defense team's request. Now, we can look at all this economic data, and I really want to point out something. I did write something, and I think we should really entertain it on what I wrote here. And it's basically that okay. So basically we're gonna talk about the economy and the economy at present. It is very hard to gauge the economy under the current administration. I say this with many statistics showing promise, but then they have to be restated. What do I mean by that? Almost every job report I have looked at under the Biden administration has been changed at a later date. This means they will put out a jobs report that does show some promise, and then a month or two later they restate the numbers and they are lower.
Yeah, it goes to page 6, not page 1, like the other ones did.
In my opinion, we are being gaslit by this administration.
Oh, huge.
They will talk about month-to-month inflation as if this is the key point to view. But we need to look at the accumulated inflation. If 1 month it was 3%, then the next month it is 3%. Does that still mean inflation is 3%? No. That is
only
exactly
if you're a Democrat.
That is exactly what it does not mean. This means that inflation is 6%. 2 months of 3% added together. Yet we have had much worse than this. Inflation has had an upward number every month of this administration. That means it has not gone down at all. It just continues to climb. How can we as a society continue to deal with something like this? They state that the unemployment is at or below 4%. Well, that is a great number. But when you look at the jobs that came back from COVID, that just tells us that the jobs are now back. These are not new jobs. And they state that small businesses...
Wait. So you're saying that you shut down a business, you don't record the job losses, then you allow them to reopen, you can call that job growth?
That's what they're doing. But I even got more. You just talked about small business, and that's where I'm going next. So these are not new jobs, Bill. And they state that small business startups are up into the 10 million since Biden. Well, how many small businesses had to close due to the Biden presidency? We all know many companies got ruined because of COVID. Therefore, this is a recovery, sure. And it has gotten almost back to pre-COVID in some respects, but not better by any means. We need a better economy and less waste of a taxpayer money. Enough of the Green Deal stuff to enrich friends of the Biden administration. We need to cut spending, period. We as individuals would have to cut spending if our lives were anything like the government at present. What do you say, Bill?
Well, first of all, Steve, only in the federal government can you get away with something like that. If you or I were to look at our personal budget and we made $100,000 a year, but we're spending $300,000 a year and can't figure out why we don't have any money, then, here you go.
Exactly.
Deficit spending is a strictly unique governmental concept. Okay?
Yes. It's not an individual or family one. It doesn't work.
My marriage was mostly deficit spending, and trust me, I'm still paying for it. So I'm gonna take what you just piggyback onto some of the things that you said, because you made some really great points there. The unemployment numbers, yes. I mean, that I didn't mean to use a soundbite, but the fact is that you can't cancel there's got to be another category. They're very vague in their categories. There's got to be another category for a job that's been refilled, that's been replaced, not created. Okay. I don't have the numbers, nor do I think you do, nor would anybody at the tip of the fingers about how many businesses closed. But it was, oh my God, it had to be probably 40% of small businesses that just because of all the lockdowns and all that, just simply just had to close their doors. And I know some personal friends who lost their businesses over it. But you talk about the Banana Republic part of it. Okay, Banana Republic is not a derisive term. It's what we call the South American countries, the Argentinas and all that, who have dictatorships. They don't have a participatory government. They live off of one product. They have steps in place against juntas and coups and all that, because that's the way their country operates. Well, that is a Banana Republic. Well, we're not that far off from that as it is, because the world is already laughing at us, okay? The world sees a weak president that has taken slap after slap after slap in the face on the public stage, continue to be embarrassed with no response, continue to be challenged, and then try to find peace when you should have punched somebody right in the fucking mouth. Like Iran, we're just going to wait and see what happens. And Israel, don't defend yourself. No, it's okay. It's just weak, okay? Then they see us trying to eliminate a former president that overall made a positive impact on the entire world, not just the United States. And they see us trying to erase the guy because we don't want him to win again because of political partisanship. This is all so embarrassing. And yes, but we always had that one thing that made us great, and that was the dollar. Well, the American dollar is weak. The American dollar is not carrying the weight that it used to. All right. So if Trump goes to jail, what we're saying is that we are just the biggest, most mixed up bunch of freaking knuckleheads with no vision of any kind. That what possible faith would the world have in us? And as world markets collapse, and we're so invested in the entire world, and everything's so intertwined economically and politically and all that, it would be a Banana Republic, Steve. It's a very fair article. It's a very strong opinion that I have to almost get behind. I think it's very, very important.
Oh, I agree. I mean, if he does go to Rikers Island, like Eric Adams, the Migrants a Good Swimmers mayor, states, he's got Rikers Island ready for Trump. I mean, people won't buy bonds in this country. It will have a catastrophic effect on our dollar, like you were just saying. It would destroy it. That may be the catalyzing point where China can convince the rest of the world to eradicate the U.S. dollar as the petrodollar and do something. Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, China, and Russia have already tried to move the petrodollar away from the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, so people better start thinking about these things. These are very important. But we're going to continue to watch Trump, Biden, everything to do with the election, all the cases, everything swirling around all of this. And Bill's going to go in right now with a little something. I'm very interested at what you have to say here, because just your headline alone, I disagree. He's going to lay it out. But here we are at the We Are Marshall podcast. We're going to hand it over to Bill once again. He's going to do his the fourth segment for us, and his This Day in History. Go right ahead, Bill.
Well, let's do it in the form of a question. Does Trump have a base problem? And I would have to say that even without reading this article, but this article certainly helps, I would say that he definitely does. Okay. Donald Trump's dominance in 2024 primaries is still being hampered by ongoing and potentially very significant support received by Nikki Haley. Okay. Nikki's not running anymore. She's how they call it, suspended her campaign, but she's still collecting delegates, okay? And it's problematic for Donald Trump. So on Tuesday, the former president and presumptive 2024 candidate continued his successful primary season with a comfortable victory in Indiana. I'm sorry, that was last Tuesday, winning more than 78% of the vote. Haley, however, Trump's last remaining Republican rival, who dropped out of the race in March, managed to gain 21.7% of the vote. That's a significant number, okay, amounting to more than 128,000 votes. It's the latest sign that a sizable portion of the GOP base does not want to support the MAGA former president. And that's where I want to focus on my discussion on this article, because it really seems like a lot of people are being forced in the Republican Party, mostly Republican candidates, senators, congressmen. They're all being encouraged to get behind Donald Trump, and it might be blowing up in their face a little bit. When you break down further, the Indiana Republican primary results show that the former United Nations ambassador, Nikki Haley, received more than 30% of the vote in several areas, including Marion County, where the state capital of Indianapolis is located, and which is the affluent suburb of Hamilton Country. So to jump ahead, there is a disparity in support among economic and employment variables about Trump's support. So while discussing the results of this, Amar Musa, a spokesman for President Biden's 2024 campaign team, he posted on Twitter or X, Nikki Haley dropped out 2 months ago. Tonight she's picking up over 100,000 votes and 22% of the primary vote in Indiana. Trump has a GOP base problem. The results in Indiana were not an outlier for Haley. She's been actually been seen by many as more moderate, and she's achieved 20 to 40% in some cases of the votes in several states on Super Tuesday, including Mass. 37% of Republican voters in the primary voted for Nikki Haley. Colorado, 34%, and Minnesota, 29%, on her way to winning more than 2 million votes. Now, even after she dropped out of the race, Haley still received 16.6% of the vote in Pennsylvania, with more than 158,000 ballots. And that was significant because the general election results of Pennsylvania in November could help determine who controls the White House. All right, so it's a swing state in which Trump is, in some reports, dominating Biden, in other reports, it's kind of close. Either way, it's definitely not something anyone can call for sure right now. But in 2020, Trump lost that state to Biden by over 1%, or 80,000 votes. Haley achieved nearly double that amount in the primary than that Trump lost in 2020. That can make it difficult for the former president of the state with no guarantee that Haley's supporters, and this is the thing, here's the big question, Steve. Will Haley's supporters go on to support Trump? That's the big question. I don't know.
I think they will in a high percentage. They're not going to support Biden.
No, but they might not vote. They might write in another candidate. They might, I don't know. I think that some of Nikki Haley's followers are so anti-Trump that they might not vote at all. So you have the opinion that they will. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm open to the possibility that they won't. But it's a pretty interesting thing to think about is those Haley supporters, where are they going to go with their vote, which just supports the overall tone of the article, which does Donald Trump indeed have a base problem. Christopher Borick, a professor of political science and director of the Muhlenberg College Institute of Public Opinion in Pennsylvania, said Nikki Haley's significant share of the vote in the primary is an absolute warning sign for Donald Trump. Her 16% share is quite a signal for his campaign that they have work in shoring up the Republican base approval background. And he added that Haley performed best in the suburbs among highly educated and wealthier Republicans who maintain significant reservations about Trump.
Which blows my mind because she comes off like a dope now.
Really? I haven't seen an example of that. Please tell me.
Even when she was doing the primary, she was saying crazy and stupid shit.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Nikki Haley has completely lost me, and you know I liked her.
Yeah,
she lost me. But
you were telling me the other day that she sold herself out, and I'm sad that I don't know about that. So by all means, if you feel we have time, tell me a few things about it. What did she do?
Well, the thing I look at is I don't think Trump has a base problem. I think you have a primary where people are going to choose who they want. It's good to primary. Primary to me is good. It's competition. It shows what's going on. But we got to really look at things, okay? Every network, can you agree with me, in the previous elections, every network has not given Trump his due in the polls.
They all predicted him to lose.
They all predicted him to lose. Dude, every poll has Trump smashing Biden. Even in states Biden beat him before. So that doesn't tell me that's a base problem. That tells me they hate Biden so much. Some people might like some things Nikki Haley's saying, but still the majority of that base likes Donald Trump. Okay? Secondly, if you go look at the New Jersey campaign trail thing that he just did, there were over 30,000 people there, my friend. That was a humongous thing. So I don't think that even more. Then I look at New York when he went into Harlem to the Bodegos, okay? Mm-hmm. They loved him. They loved Trump in Harlem. Are you kidding me? So I don't think his base is hurting at all. And then you see Trump side, and you drive around. All right. I know you drive on your bike, you drive your car. Do you see any Biden signs?
No, none. I see a lot of Trump signs, though.
Do you see Trump signs?
A lot.
Everywhere. Now, today I was up in New Boston, New Hampshire, okay? And I did see Trump signs everywhere. And it was the first time in New Hampshire, though, that I saw any Democratic-leaning sign. It wasn't a Biden sign. It was an issue sign saying, trust women. Basically saying that only women should have the decision on abortion. So you got to trust them. I don't agree with it. It had issues like that, but no Biden support on it. So I think that they're trying to tout their issues, but they got nothing for Biden. They may like some things that Nikki Haley says, but I do think I don't know if it's like a sellout. I just think she talks shit too much, and she's got nothing to back it up.
Well, I think that she felt herself compelled to catch up in the brazen category, recognizing that Trump stirs up a lot of support by his brazen nature, and she probably tried to be someone that she isn't. And that
she tried to do backfired on her. Here's the best part. Trump's got a number of trials against him, right? He's looking at 700 years in jail, right?
Yeah.
And he still beat Nikki Haley in the primary.
No, absolutely.
That tells me, and it's, I'm not just being a contrarian or disagreeing, but
we don't have to agree. And I asked you for this.
But I'm just saying, those 4 points I gave you, that tells me his base is stronger than ever, not weak.
Here's what I'm going to put out there. I see a lot of people, just by talking to people, and this doesn't mean it's by any means a statistically significant, I can't say that word, significant number. But a lot of people say that that the Republican Party was given no choice but to support Donald Trump. And this was very evident when the bipartisan, that it was a joke of a bill, but when this bipartisan bill, aid bill for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel, came up, and Biden reluctantly offered to put border compromise in there. Well, Trump basically said, "Don't vote on this bill. I want to run on it as a campaign issue." And a lot of people resented the fact that after all that work, that it was just dropped to satisfy. He was kind of being a demagogue about it. And as I've already said, I'm not the biggest Trump supporter, but I do give the guy a lot of credit. I do like a lot of things about him. I think there's an element that simply is just not speaking up, because they're not as well trained as the Democrats are, but they're just not speaking up about the fact that he's not their guy. And you see a lot of people that have talked, not just the crazy ones like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but other people who have said that they will actually not vote for Trump, or some people even change party. You and I talked about that a long time ago, just to tank this election because they just feel there's no good candidate running.
Well, let's go this way. That's the problem right there. You just nailed perfect for me what I'm about to say. Okay? Candidate. Fuck the candidate. Yes, they don't like Trump, and that's fine. We're not voting for Trump. We're voting for the outcome.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that.
Administration will do. We both don't care for Trump. We both are not Trump supporters. But you and I will vote for the outcomes that the Trump administration will meet down upon.
Let's go back to your conversation about the economy, okay? I love to ask a Democrat how their 401k was doing during Trump's administration. I love doing that. That's one of my favorite things to do. Oh, he's evil and all that. Yeah, but I bet when you loved how your 401k did when he was in office, didn't you?
Exactly.
Oh, well, that's different. No, it's not. If you reject his policies, then cash in your 401k. And I tell you right now, the first day this guy gets elected, the market's going to jump to the fucking roof.
Totally.
I guarantee you this. Absolutely will.
Like, let's look at something that we were talking about on that economic issue, okay?
Mm-hmm.
6.2 million people were unable to work because their employer closed or lost their business. In June 2021, of the 6.2 million people that did not work at all or worked fewer hours at some point in the last 4 weeks because their employer closed or lost business due to the coronavirus pandemic,
Yeah.
575,000 were aged 16 to 24. 3.7 million were aged 25 to 54, and 1.9 million were 55 years and older. So 34% of America's small businesses closed due to COVID. That's ginormous. So
Okay.
how dare you sit up
I
there,
had said
but
I had
oh,
said
I
40.
created all this stuff. You're full of
Yeah.
shit. Like I summed it up, it was a recovery of what we lost during COVID, and was still not better.
When were you going to
Okay?
work that into the conversation? Did you have that planned? Did it just seem like a good time? That's a great stat.
I had it ready to go. So, but
That's beautiful.
we're gonna stop on this. We're gonna jump right into the good one of the good topics. We end this always on some good topics that I like. The first one's gonna be Bill's This Day in History. Go right ahead, Bill.
One of my favorite subjects, Steve. In this day in history, the Soviet Union began its withdrawal from Afghanistan. I love this story. My favorite movie, well, not my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies about politics is Charlie Wilson's War. And I did look up all of the inconsistencies of the movie, but it pretty much got it right. It was about Congressman Charlie Wilson and his behind the scenes involvement in bringing down the Russians after they invaded Afghanistan. Okay, Afghanistan, when they were invaded by the Russians, and they're on the same continent, people obviously need to know that, they had said that Russia officially began, the next phase of the Cold War, and that if Afghanistan were to fall, the rest of the world would follow. Okay. Well, what happened was when the Soviets rolled into Afghanistan, and they were just savages. They were just killing people, shooting them with helicopters, and just planting mines. It was absolutely savage what the Russian army did in Afghanistan. And the CIA ran a very weak campaign trying to counter it, in which they basically kind of hoped that they'd just run out of bullets until we got serious and we found ways to get weapons in there that didn't have made in USA on them because it was a proxy war. We couldn't. It wasn't a war between the United States and Russia. It was arming the Taliban, arming what now is the Taliban, unfortunately, but the Mujahideen, which is high priests of rebellion in Afghanistan, to fight the Russians themselves with weapons we provided for them. We ended up spending several $billions to do this, but ultimately the Russians did, for the first time in their history, retreat from one of their attempted conquests. And that was this day in history in 1988. After 8 years after they intervened in Afghanistan to support the pre-communist government, Soviet troops began their withdrawal. The event marked the beginning of the end to a long, bloody, and fruitless Soviet occupation of Afghanistan. In December of 1979, Soviet troops first entered Afghanistan in an attempt to bolster the communist pro-Soviet government threatened by internal rebellion. In a short period of time, thousands of Russian troops and support materials poured into Afghanistan. Thus began a frustrating military conflict with Afghan Muslim rebels who despised their own nation's communist government and the Soviet troops supporting it. During the next 8 years, the two sides battled for control in Afghanistan, but neither the Soviets nor the rebels ever gained a decisive victory. For the Soviet Union, intervention proved extraordinarily costly in a number of ways. While the Soviets never released official casualty figures for the war, U.S. intelligence sources estimate that as many as 15,000 troops died, and they lost a lot of equipment because we took out their tanks, we took out their helicopter, we took out their fixed-wing aircraft, we took out everything, and they'd still, even as they pulled their troops over the Friendship Bridge that bordered the two countries, they had no idea where we got the shit that shot their helicopters down. But it was an ugly incident. It's a terrible situation in history. The retreat was a beautiful thing to watch because the Russians were so savage in their techniques. They were killing children. They made bombs that looked like shiny objects and toys, and kids would pick them up, had their arms blown off. The helicopters that just shooting at civilians as they ran around trying to get away. It was absolutely horrible. And the fact that they did not achieve victory in Afghanistan means we averted one of the biggest Cold War crises. And this, of course, right before the wall fell in 1990. But it was definitely Russia's Vietnam, and it was a proxy victory for the United States, and the first time the CIA essentially ran a campaign. So it's a big thing in history. If you have a chance about it, people read up on it. Sorry, go ahead, see.
Good stuff, but you missed a big key piece.
Tell me, man.
Who was leading the Mujahideen?
That would be Osama bin Laden.
So we supported Osama bin
Yeah.
Laden.
Just like we supported Hussein until he invaded Kuwait. Then all of a sudden he became our enemy. The enemy of my friend is my friend.
I was just going to say that. But
Yeah.
people, what you got to understand is this is kind of the realm of why other countries are mad at us and they think we do things that are nefarious, okay?
Yep.
Because here we are, we supported Osama bin Laden, then we went and killed him.
Yep.
Okay, but there's reasons for that. And like Bill said, that phrase, the enemy of mine enemy is my friend. That I hate cliches, Bill knows that. But that one holds
I
so
do too. But exactly. Is it perfect for that? Yeah.
Perfect. And I just wanted people to know that was Osama bin Laden. And yes, we gave them a lot of our law rockets, the shoulder rockets to shoot down a lot of the helicopters.
Yeah.
And we helped them to back them out of there. And unfortunately, that's where Osama bin Laden's renown came from fighting the Russians and us helping.
Yeah, I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to go in a different direction to make the segment longer. But I am glad you mentioned that because, like I said, in 1990, when we invaded Iraq, at that moment we were supporting Hussein as he fought with Iraq. Iraq and Iran are always, with Iran, Iraq and the war is always at war, and we supported one. And then all of a sudden, in one invasion, now the guy's our enemy. After we had given him all of this weaponry, which was then used upon us.
Yep.
Great.
And I'm going to squeeze in before I move on. And we gave Saddam Hussein weapons of mass destruction. Let's not forget that.
Exactly.
Okay.
A lot of Iraq vets don't want to hear that.
Yeah, we're at the end of the podcast. We covered a lot of heavy stuff. I will be back tomorrow. I'm hoping Bill can early. If not, there will be a podcast tomorrow for us, and we'll go from there, and we'll see how we can schedule this out a little bit better. And I'm trying to work on getting us live. I've got some software that'll help us to do that. I would like to get us in a chat so that you folks could then live time chat with us and maybe have some questions that would make the podcast, in my opinion, I'm sure Bill would agree with that, a little more dynamic. But we're at the end of the podcast. Like I said, I always end it with a feel-good story, human interest, tech breakthrough, healthcare breakthrough. This one, to me, is kind of a health and a tech breakthrough, and it's actually quite fascinating. And I keep coming up with these, and I like to show them because I want you people to know one thing. Even with all these heavy stories, there's hope in all aspects of our life. So MIT makes astonishing discovery that light can vaporize water without heat for clean energy and desalination. If you don't know what desalination is, that is turning salt water into drinkable water. So it's not every year that a major discovery is made in the basic natural sciences of Earth, but using painfully precise measurements, MIT has written a new chapter in something that most people probably thought they knew completely: evaporation. The scientists say the discovery could explain mysterious measurements in the literature of clouds, which may increase the precision of climate modeling while also aiding in industrial applications. In the study, the discovery that evaporation can occur just with light and without heat was so unexpected and surprising that it was subjected to 14 different tests and measurements to try and disprove what the scientists did observe. One consistent finding was that the air temperature above the place at which water molecules were turning into gases would cool down briefly, then level out, showing definitively that thermal energy is not required. I think this has a lot of application, said Professor of Power Engineering at MIT, Gang Chen. We're exploring all these different directions, and of course, it also affects the basic science, like the effects of clouds on climate, because clouds are the most uncertain aspect of climate models. Other fascinating details from the study include the data point that photoevaporation is strongest when the light arrives at a 45-degree angle and or when the light is on the green spectrum, which is odd, MIT Press writes, because that's the color at which water is most transparent. Without every leaf being turned over, Chen et al.'s working hypothesis is that when arriving at sufficient angle and force, light particles can knock loose single water molecules. They have named this the photomolecular effect, by analogy with the photoelectric effect that was discovered by Heinrich Hertz in 1887. Clouds absorb sunlight, but for 80 years, studies have consistently shown that they absorb more sunlight than conventional physics predicts would be possible. Those experiments are based on satellite data and flight data, Chen explains. They fly an airplane on top of and below the clouds, and there are also data based on the ocean temperature and radiation balance. And they all conclude that there is more absorption by clouds than theory could have calculated. Graduate student James Zhang, a co-author on the paper, adds that solar desalination research also shows that there are happenings beyond what conventional physics would predict based on current knowledge of how water acts. The team believes the photomolecular effect could be behind both mysteries. Since demonstrating the photomolecular effect at the proceedings of the the National Academy of Sciences, Chen says he has already been approached by companies looking to harness this effect for everything from drying paper in a paper mill to evaporating maple syrup. So, what do you think of all that, Bill? This is kind of fascinating because they're now finding out that physics needs to change, which we all know things change like that, and that the clouds and these low numbers that they thought were off measurements were really not off. They're what transpires in Earth's environment.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I think that anybody that cares at all about sustainability would have to think that there's got to be a limit to fresh water at some point. And, there's a lot of countries in the world, or at least areas of the world, that suffer from lack of water. Desalination has always been a very costly process.
Yep.
It almost requires the actual distillation of water, which is extremely energy consuming. It's like cold fusion, which they're still working on. If you can find a way to not have to generate such excessive heat, which is part of the reason nuclear energy has dangers, then you could solve a potentially massive problem. I think it's a fantastic development. I think that it seems the scientists are looking to solve some of our most pressing issues in a more organic way.
Yes.
I want to avoid the stigma that comes with that word. I don't mean earthy crunchy, but I mean the fact is that in a more organic, less processed and industrialized manner, I think it's fantastic. And I think the scientists, by doing that, are opening up almost a whole new branch of scientific research.
Exactly. And this is where these climate freaks, I got to call them freaks, sit back and they don't think we're doing anything. I've covered a million stories, not literally, but a ton of stories on here that clearly show that our scientists all over the world are doing fantastic stuff to fight climate, resources, and all kinds of things. So people don't panic and think that that's not happening and the world's not going to end. I mean, I think they're 0 for 15 in predictions that the world's going to end based upon climate stuff. So that record.
People don't know what's going to happen with this stuff, Stephen. That's why it's important that we talk about it. This is the
perfect example of that, Bill. Yes. Physics just changed for physicists.
Yeah. But if we don't talk about this stuff, people aren't going to know.
Exactly. So that's the end of the podcast. Thank you for tuning into the We Are Marshall podcast. As always, my name is Stephen Marshall, and this is my co-host, Bill McIntyre. We're just two guys discussing the issues of the day, laying out the facts of those issues, and giving you our opinion and view on those issues as you saw. We would also love it here at the We Are Marshall podcast if you would like and share all of our episodes around your social media. We can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, and Rumble. Rumble is where we populate our full channel with season 1 and 2 of all our episodes. So download the free app Rumble and then search for the We Are Marshall podcast. Then subscribe and follow to get notification of new episodes and any other endeavors by Bill and I. Check out our episodes on all these social media sites and share them to help us grow. We'd also love it if you would check out our website at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com. You can see a number of things Bill and I are working on the website. If you go to Bill's bio, you can click on a link to all his blog posts and check out Vella on Amazon, where Bill does also write episodic short stories for your viewing. Check out my 2 books currently for sale on Amazon, The Unforeseen Enemy and The Perception Therapist. Both are available now. I will be releasing Skies Over Terrorism within the next 30 days. Also, check out our sponsors, Local Prints New Hampshire. You can go to our website again at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com and click on the link to Local Prints New Hampshire on the top left. They are a full-scale screen printing company in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and they are available for domestic and international printing. Go support them as they always support us. And also check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com, a large dating website just like all the other big dating websites out there, with all the features that the big players have in the dating sphere, but Mate Connector is much more inexpensive than any of the other players in the dating market. We would also like it if you would support our newest sponsor, Army Ranger Painting and Contracting. You can contact and look into them at www.armyrangerpainting.com. They're a full-service contracting company supporting Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Check them out and schedule a free estimate of any project you have. And like always, if you have any questions or issues, you can reach us both at the following emails. Bill can be reached at bill@wearemarshallpodcast.com, and myself, I can be reached at steve@wearemarshallpodcast.com. We thank you for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow with some content. Everybody have a good evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.